today. Oh, Fiddle, I did not realize I already went live. Last time I hit start streaming on my streaming software, then it allowed me to hit go live on the YouTube end, which I'm wondering what I did differently this time. Sorry, I woke up and I'm 5 minutes late to start this because I woke up and then immediately saw the time and it was like really close to. I'm just gonna start over. I Good morning, friends. I'm very exhausted. I just got back from a long trip where I was driving for many, many hours, and it was also just a stressful trip when I got there. I woke up and I saw I only had like 20 minutes to set up the stream, and I think somehow I did it wrong. I'm not entirely sure exactly what I did differently this time compared to last time. Not only did YouTube forget everything that was supposed to be in like metadata stuff, like it forgot tags and categories, whatever, but also it just went live when I clicked something on OBS, where in my experience when I click that on OBS it's supposed to start sending that to YouTube and then I choose what goes live and what doesn't, because that's what I was able to do last time. So I did something wrong and I don't know what. Oh yeah, also OBS was being weird. The video capture thing, it had a box in the corner saying video capture, but it wasn't making any video. So I had to remove it and then make a new one. So you can see me. Hi. Yeah, good morning, friends. Even though it's already kind of been a confusing and difficult morning, I'm really grateful to be home. And I'm also really grateful I got to go on the family trip. If anyone's wondering why I didn't stream yesterday, which is when I wanted to, it's because yesterday was Monday and I was driving all day. But I was driving all day because on Sunday, one of my cousins was baptized. And I had to drive out, not had to, I got to drive out and see the ceremony and be part of the ceremony, and it was really great, and I'm really happy I was able to do that. I hope anyone watching this and all of their families are doing really, really well. Honestly, if anyone you know has been like baptized or married or anything recently, let me know, say that in chat, because it's really cool. I always love hearing about nice events like that in other people's lives. This is my, journaling Bible. I have a bunch of Bibles. I recently packed up almost all the books in my room, so I've packed up most of them. I have two out. One, this computer is resting on, which is a ecumenical study Bible that I often will pull information from for taking notes or confirming stuff in this. But then this is the one that I take with me everywhere to write in, because it has extra. Oh, fiddle! I did not mean to hit the mic there. This has extra margins on the side meant for writing. It's probably not showing up well on camera. Anyway, I brought this with me because I thought I was going to be taking notes during the Mass that the baptism was during and all this other stuff, and that didn't happen. But I did finish reading the book of Revelation for the first time over the weekend, and that's not the trivia that I'm going to do today, but wow, I had a very strong emotional reaction to that, and I'm still kind of processing it, so it's really cool. I'm glad I had the opportunity to read that. Without further ado, let's just get into the trivia, because if I don't cap stuff here, I'll just be chatty all morning, because I'm confused about a lot of things, and I'm also just happy to be back home in my bed. Alrighty, so we're starting with Leviticus. Oh golly, I really hope the OBS at least saved the sound mixing, because this screen is really, really loud. I'm actually going to check. I'm going to pull up the stream on my phone and just make sure that that background noise isn't too loud. Yeah, it's fine. Sorry about that. Normally I would have this other device that I'm using to watch the chat and to watch the stream, and it's not working this morning, just like OBS is working differently. So today is just a weird morning for me. What kind of birds were used in burnt offerings? I think it's dove and young pigeon. I'm pretty sure that when you're doing like the burnt offering for the firstborn male of a house, it can either be like a ram or 2 doves, and the 2 doves are like the cheaper option. So like if you're from a household, I'm gonna move the mic closer. If you're from a household that can't afford a ram, your family would offer the 2 doves for your birth. I don't know why I'm putting in quotes, it literally is 2 doves. But when we see Joseph and Mary present Jesus at the temple in the New Testament, I think they present the cheaper offering, the two doves or the 2 pigeons, which that shows from what a lowly place and from like a poorer family that the Savior of all humanity comes, which is really interesting. For sure, yeah. Yay! If someone cannot afford 2 doves or pigeons for their sin offering, what should they bring? I don't know. Because all these answers are similar, I feel like one of them has to be right and the other 2 are trying to throw me off the trail, so I'm going to click that. Okay. Who knows? Bradley, your own bed is always the best, especially after a while away. Definitely. What I will say, though, is I was staying with my aunt, and she was letting me stay. The bed I was staying on was actually firmer than mine back home, and that was actually better for my back pain. So I was happy about that, but it is so much harder to fall asleep in an unfamiliar environment, because it's like every little noise you hear, you just kind of wonder. Which, she had 2 dogs, and I absolutely love dogs, but because I'm used to living in a house with no dogs, the amount of just random footsteps I heard at night was, definitely surprising for me. Like, it's not what I'm used to, so it kept me awake a little bit. What kind of animal could Israelites not eat? Okay, they can eat this. They can eat this, because that's why when you go to buy, like, fish in the market, sometimes they'll still have some of the skin on. It's to let you know, like, if it had scales or not. Oh, wait. Maybe it's this. I don't know. Because this, I think, is clean, right? Because some animals have divided hoof and don't chew their cud. Others chew their cud but don't have a divided hoof. I'm not sure. I'm gonna pick this. Oh, okay. I probably missed some very easy, like, they're saying an animal didn't have, like, I probably missed some double negative or something. I just woke up. How is someone unclean supposed to become clean again? Well, that depends. Sometimes it's as easy as waiting for the sun to rise, but that's not one of the options here. Bathing often works, but then often there was also an offering involved, so I'm not fully sure. I do know that shaving is part of becoming clean if you have a defiling skin disease, which, depending on your Bible, may be translated as leprosy, but we don't know what disease they're referring to, so now a lot of translations say defiling skin disease. I'm going to pick bathe because that was involved in a lot of them, where I forget what kind of offering was involved in a lot of them, so I'm hoping this is what they mean. Okay. Let's go, we're so back. I'm kidding. I believe they're put to death, but if they're not, they're cut off from the kingdom of Israel. I'm not going to read this question out loud. Yeah, I was right. Sorry, I shouldn't smile about this. I giggle when I'm nervous, and that's definitely a question that'll make me nervous. Which, it's interesting, though, right? It's interesting that that's explicitly forbidden, because we see people like Job do it, and, sorry, we see people like Job do it and not get punished, so it's kind of like, I believe they forgot to put and chew for the cut. I think so, too. This is not a dig against this game, but there have been multiple times I'm reading something where I think possibly the person who made it doesn't speak English as a first language. So there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think this game was translated from another language, but there are times I see something where it kind of just has, like, the type of language mistakes you see when someone is kind of still learning English. So I think I think, yeah, you're right. It's just missing a word. I just didn't understand, like, which of the answers, though, because I thought if you had cloven hoofs and chewed the cud, it is a clean animal, and that's why, like, a cow would be clean, but, like, a camel wouldn't be, right? Because a camel has, I think, cloven hooves and doesn't chew cud. I don't know. A lot of Bible trivia miss the details of the Bible. Yeah. I mean, it focuses on little details I don't know, like, what kind of sacrifice can you do in lieu of this one? But then, like, they miss the detail of an entire word. If the daughter of a priest does this, she must do what? I think it's one of these two, because both of these are a way you can kill someone without ever laying a hand on them. And this seems like a situation where laying a hand on her would make you ritually unclean. And if you're like a priest, or if you're a member of like a priest's family, you're allowed to eat the priest's portion. Like, you're allowed to eat some of the sacrifice. None of you would want to become physically unclean, because then you wouldn't be able to have this to do that. So I think the people who would be punishing her would want to not touch her. I'm gonna pick this. Okay. Everything I just said could have been wrong. This is all speculation. If you offer a sheep or a goat from the flock as a burnt offering, it must be without blemish. Well, I mean, it needs to be without all three of these. I'm gonna pick this, because this is what my translation says. I forget what translation this game follows. Okay, well, cool. Or maybe it's without defect, and then it's only, like, when you're dedicating the temple, it needs to be without blemish and defect. I don't know. No idea. How much of a ram's value must someone bring during a guilt offering? I don't know. Okay. This is why I'm coupling Leviticus with Paul's letter to the Romans, is I figure Leviticus will be a lot of things where it's like, I don't know. Where hopefully with the letter to the Romans, it'll just be like, how much can you remember about Paul's theology? Which I feel like I'm getting a pretty good grasp on it. And that also just feels like a more fair thing for me to try to remember. How long must someone wait to be clean after touching the animal's carcass? I think it's until morning. This is what I meant when I said sometimes just waiting for the sun to rise is what ritually cleanses you. Oh, I guess it's... Oh, duh. It's probably until evening, because their days start at evening and begin at sunrise. I was remembering that it's like you have to wait a day. I just had a brain fart. This coffee is not waking me up fast enough. Who are the Israelites commanded not to sacrifice their children to? Golly. Actually, okay. I know it's either Baal or Moloch. I forget which one. I think it's Moloch. The thing is... It is. Okay, I wrote a letter and a sermon about this literally the other day. And I have a very visual memory. I literally was just trying to, like, look through the letter I wrote in my head, and I saw Moloch in my own handwriting, and I didn't see Baal in my own handwriting. That's also how I remember stuff during tests in school, is I look at my notes in my head, and I just look to see, like, where I wrote something. Which is great, and that's why I was showing this off my note-taking Bible, is because I'm such a visual person, really, the way I learn stuff is reading and writing. So, well, everyone learns how to read and write. What I'm getting at is, like, having the notes right next to something is helpful, because then if I can see the verse in my head, I can see my notes next to it. Whatever. Uh, yay. Sorry about my hair. I know it's wild right now. I just woke up. If a man does this with his aunt, they will die in what state? I think it's this. I remember this. Yeah. Which I find interesting because I guess we all know in real life that the more inbreeding a group does, the more likely they are not to produce offspring. But I think just someone and their aunt would be very likely to produce offspring. So that doesn't seem to be like a medical observation that made its way into the Bible. That does seem to be like a judgment given by God, which obviously that's what it's presented as, but I'm saying is I could imagine some people seem to try to read the Bible through a very like skeptical literal lens where they're not like a fundamentalist, but they're definitely like, this is clearly a reference to this phenomenon, and this is probably people misunderstanding this historic thing. Like, they try to find like an explanation for like literally everything that happens. They never deny anything in it happened, but they try to find like an explanation for everything. And I see that happen a lot with laws, where they'll be like, well, this law says this was unclean because this could cause disease. And it's like, I don't know if that law was. I don't know if certain things were declared unclean because they could cause disease, or if. No, this is just a law given by God. You know, I'm struggling to word this. I guess what I'm trying to say is like. Sorry, I'm looking in chat to see if anyone's like explained better than I do. Um, Sometimes it seems like people need there to be an additional explanation for everything included in the Bible other than the explanation that the Bible already provides. Um, and I was just trying to say, I don't think that works with that verse. Sorry if that was a weird rant to go on. If someone sells their house in a walled city, how long do they have to reconsider? I think it was a year. I think it was a year. This has to do with Jubilee laws. Yeah. Which, if you sell your house in the country, it'll get returned to you after 7 years. Or, not after 7 years. It'll get returned, yes, after 7 years. Um, or if not, then at the Jubilee year, that would happen after 50 years. What I'm getting at is, if you sell your house in a walled city, though, it doesn't get returned to you. So that's pretty interesting. Which kind of makes sense, because, like, the people who'd be living out in the countryside, it would be generation after generation working on some farm. If some year, bad crops, forced to sell it, whatever, it's nice they get it back. Or think about people who live out in cities where it's like, you know, people today live in cities, they buy some apartment, they live in it for 2 years, sell it to someone else. 50 years later, by the time the Jubilee year comes, 25 people will have lived in that house, you know, like, it, even in today's world, that rule makes complete sense. Any grain offering made to God must be made without yeast and without, and, wait, must be made without yeast and wheat. Any grain offering made to God must be without yeast and what? I misread that. I think wine? I don't know. Okay. Oh, it could have been honey. I have no idea. If a neighbor lies, steals, or extorts for money, when can they confess and pay back with interest? I mean, like, at any time, right? You should, but I think it's the Festival of Atonement, because you have to seek forgiveness from someone 3 times before you can ask for forgiveness from God. For modern day Yom Kippur, which is what this becomes. So I think it's this. Okay, I'm wrong. It says, yeah, one show I watched, they did that. Decided to show them forging an entry certificate. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Sorry. How many days must a woman wait for the purification of her bleeding after giving birth to a son? I think it's 33 days, right? And isn't it like 38 days or like 39 days if it's a daughter? I mean, obviously this saying correct does not mean what I said about the daughter thing is correct. All it means is the son thing. Anyone who curses their father or mother will be what? Put to death? Again, it's one of these two. And technically this is a form of this. So it's like, now I just have to remember, does the passage say stoned or does it just say put to death? And I don't remember. I'm going to pick stoned, because why not? Okay. A second. A medium or a spiritist will be what? It's put to death. I mean, I could pick stoned again. I think this one is put to death. We did it. Which is interesting because if anyone's familiar with 1 Samuel, you know, you have the Witch of Endor performing such practices for the benefit of God's servants, which we see sort of similar stuff happen elsewhere. Like, I don't think divination is ever expressly forbidden, but like certain methods of it are. But then I think we do see some of those methods used by God's servants throughout the narrative sections of the first 5 books. Whatever. At some point, I'll do like a deep dive on like magical practices in the Bible because I took a class on that in college, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. But I think it would be nice to map what I learned in the class onto like specific verses and be able to discuss it deeper rather than just say like, oh yeah, I learned in class as a general trend, blah 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 blah. What is the redemption price announced at Mount Sinai to the people of Israel? I don't really understand what this is asking me, I'll be honest. I think it's 1/10 because like tithing, but I also know that later on in Numbers, they sort of had all the male members of a certain age of the tribe of Levites would redeem all the male people of a certain age of all the other tribes just by existing. Like, whatever. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea. The memorial portion of a grain offering should be burned with grain, oil, and what? I think it's incense, right? Okay, I don't know if it's incense or perfume, because those two words can be used interchangeably, but I think it's like, you have the grain offering, you bake this like small unleavened loaf of just like oil and flour, and then you like brush oil on top of it, and then you put like the perfume or the incense on top of that, and you just light the whole thing on fire, I'm pretty sure. I'm just going to pick incense, but again, depending on translation, these two could be used interchangeably. English is a weird language. Eating what part of an animal would result in someone being cut off from the community? I think it's fat, because I'm pretty sure the fat of the animal, along with the blood of the animal, belongs to God as an offering, so if you eat it, you're basically stealing from God. Yeah, I was right. Yay! If a house has spreading mold, affected parts of the wall... Wait. Oh, if a house has spreading mold, affected parts of the wall must be what? I think it's like scraped and replastered, but if it doesn't stop torn out, I'm gonna hit all the above. The rules about infectious mold and about defiling skin disease, there's like 2 sets. They're like, do this, and then if that doesn't work, do this other thing. So I don't know what they're asking. Yeah, okay. Which, I mean, it's good that they do that, because that's also how we do a lot of medical stuff today, where, like, a doctor might say, like, hey, take this for 6 weeks, and if stuff doesn't get better, get back to me, So it's like, it makes complete sense, but the law is kind of confusing there, because it's like, there's a rule for, like, if it's not actually that big of a problem, and then there's a separate rule for, like, no, we can't fix this. Let's give up. If a man does this, they will be what? See, okay, that time it probably was stoned. That time it probably was... You can't just say put to death. You have to put them to death in a way where you don't physically touch them, so you don't, like, absorb their uncleanliness. Absorb. I guess get infected with? I don't know the term. You know what I mean. How often do the Israelites consecrate the land with a jubilee? I believe it's once every 50 years, and we can get that by multiplying 7, because I think it's every 7 years the land itself observes a Sabbath. That's when you don't harvest from your own field, maybe you don't cut down trees, I'm not fully sure. But every 7 years the land observes its Sabbath, and then every 7 Sabbaths, Sabbathot? I'm kidding. Every 7 Sabbaths, then you have the Jubilee year. And 7 times 7 is 49, so then the year after 49 is 50. And that's a quick way you can never forget that, I guess. I don't know. Where would a hand be laid on an animal when it was slaughtered for the fellowship offering? I think it's the head, but I also know head is where it's slaughtered for the sin offering, or where the hand is. So if it's something else here, I forgot. No, okay, it's the head. Yay! We did it. What show were you watching? Sorry, what show were you watching when they forged the entry certificate? I'd be interested. Sorry I didn't follow up on that. How long did Aaron and his sons stay at the entrance of the tent of meeting for ordination? I don't know. Because, like, 1 day and 1 night kind of makes sense, because if you have, like, cleanliness laws where it's, like, after a day they kick in, 3 would be cool, because that'd be foreshadowing for Jesus' death and resurrection. This would be cool, because 7 days of creation. This would be cool, because the 10 Sephirot. So it's like, I want kind of all of these answers to be true. I might pick 1, just because that seems in line with the cleanliness laws that are also in this specific book, so I feel like that's more cohesion. Okay. Says, don't remember some Christian documentary. I've seen a lot of really hit or miss stuff where, like, sometimes they go and they're, like, tying in archaeological stuff to stuff in the Bible, and it's, like, really cool, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I have, like, more context for this. And other times I go and it seems like History Channel Ancient Aliens type stuff. And also sometimes they blur the lines between the two. It's really frustrating. So it's like, well, now I don't know if I trust this other information that otherwise seemed pretty, with it. On what day is anointment to be made for the Israelites? Let's think about this. Okay, so none of these days are the 15th day, and the 15th day would be the full moon, and it would be a day that one of the spellings of its day would spell the name of God. So that would have been my guess if that was an option, but that's not an option. So the first day of any month would be the new moon, and the new moon is special to God. I think in Miriam's song in Exodus she sings about that, and in some of the Psalms they mention that. Like, they mention blowing shofars on the new moon. So I think I'm going to pick this. I don't know if that's true, but because I don't remember the real answer, I'm just making stuff up. Okay, cool. When I say making stuff up, I'm trying to do an educated guess. Oh, I never know if I should pick that one or if I should pick the one where they don't tell you the method. Which of these did God not threaten the Israelites with as punishment for breaking his covenant? I think this. I don't remember where this happened, but I know it did happen. This might have been from Isaiah, so maybe this is the wrong book. I don't know. Okay, and for all I know, the burning sulfur is just in Revelation, and the other... All of those are threats that have been made. I just don't remember where they were made, and this is specifically about Leviticus. Where were the Israelites meant to give their offerings? I think here. Yeah. Let's go. Which sons of Aaron did God destroy with fire after they made offerings of fire to him? This looks right to me. Yeah. I could not remember, like, the names off the top of my head. Like, if someone asked me the names, I wouldn't know, but if you give me options, I can pick which one's right. That's the case for a lot of stuff with me, which isn't that good, probably, but better than nothing. Which of these were Israelites not permitted to do? Well, I think it depends, because we're 2 kinds of material, right? You're not allowed to wear mixed fabric, so you can't have 2 kinds of material put together. But I think you could wear 2 kinds of material, like, on their own. Like, if you have a tunic made entirely of one material and an overcoat made entirely of another material, I think that's fine. Plant 2 kinds of seeds. You're not allowed to plant 2 kinds of seeds in the same field. But if you have 2 fields, you can do 1 per each. So it's like, it's one of these 2. And I don't understand. I'm gonna pick that. Okay, well then I guess it was the other one, but, like, again, there needed to be a few more words for me to know what was meant. Priests must be without what to present food offering to God? I think it's wound. I think if you're, like, physically injured, you can't do it. Okay, never mind. What animal must an anointed priest use in a sin offering? I think it's a lamb. Oh, never mind. It's hard to do random recall. Remembering only when seeing is really common. Yeah, thank you. That makes me feel a little better about it. I just get kind of... I feel kind of bad sometimes, because it's like... I feel like, oh, well, like, maybe I feel like, did I actually really learn something, or is it just kind of like lurking? But I guess if it's lurking, I'm struggling to word this well. Thank you. That's nice. That's sweet. I just often, I guess, feel insecure about my knowledge of this because I'm often watching like YouTube videos and listening to podcasts of people who seem to have just so much Bible stuff just ready to go off the top of their head, and I want to be like them. So it's like I wish I remembered the names of like random people in the Bible. Which of these flying insects with 4 legs was considered unclean? I think crickets, right? I think locusts have to be clean because I'm pretty sure that's what John the Baptist was eating. Um, and I don't think he would choose to eat an unclean animal all the time because, well, um, beetles have 6 legs. I'm pretty sure. It's one of these two. I'm gonna select this. I don't. Okay. Well, I tried. I tried. If a man does this, I really want to say this, but I keep confusing these two, especially because I think it's this. Okay. I'm sorry. It's hard to tell. I know there is an important distinction because I know that there are some actions that are punishable by death, and there are some actions that are punishable by death, and you are not permitted to touch the person who does those actions. So I'm aware that saying someone needs to be put to death and saying someone needs to be stoned, one is just in general, this action is punishable by death, and the other one is this action is punishable by death and it has the ability to make you unclean. So it's like I understand the distinction. My issue is some of these, when I'm trying to remember what it said, like when I read it, which is in probably a different translation than this game. I don't know what, this game doesn't have the NIV yet, and this is my lovely NIV Bible. Sometimes I remember like, oh, I'm pretty sure this one makes you unclean, so I select like stoned, and that's not it. Or other times it's like, all I remember is that the punishment for this is death, and I select it, and it's like, no, this is the one where you have to stone them or shoot them with arrows. It's like, okay. So it's like I completely understand the distinction between those two. I'm just saying is those two get like logged or stored the same way in my brain. Like they just get tagged with like, you die after this, you know? What kind of slaves could be passed on as an inheritance from generation to generation? I think it's this, because isn't a servant with pierced ears someone who wanted to be a lifelong servant? Because, like, if you'd served for 7 years and then you wanted to keep serving, you'd stand against the door and you'd have an awl put through your earlobe. I'm pretty sure. What I will say about... Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm shaking the mic. What I will say about this one, though, is this would be male foreigners, and I could imagine that also being the case, because the law I was just talking about with getting your ear pierced, that was for Israelite slaves enslaved to other Israelites, willfully choosing to remain enslaved, where these would be foreigners. I'm gonna say this though, because I think maybe the only one you can like keep is someone who like really really wanted to be a slave. Okay, well, I tried. I tried. Which animal must be used by a leader of the community in a sin offering? I think it could be an ox. It could also be a goat though, because maybe that's where we get the scapegoat. Yes, I remembered something. And again, for Christians watching this, that's another foreshadowing of Jesus' death and resurrection, because with the 2 goat offering, you have one goat offered on behalf of all of like Israel, and then the other goat sort of has all their sins put onto them, and then the goat runs out into the wilderness. I think it's also known as the goat of Azazel, because some people would say you're sending the goat to Azazel. All of our sins were put onto Jesus when he died on the cross. So like Jesus was our scapegoat or our goat of Azazel, which is really cool. I find that really cool. I guess if you look for it, you will see the crucifixion and resurrection in every single book of the Bible. How many days after giving birth to a daughter? Oh, hey, this is the thing I mentioned the other day. Not the other day. I thought it was a bigger number. I'm gonna pick 33 again, then? I thought it was a larger number than the male one. Okay. If a man does this, both of them will be... I think it might be cut off. I think it's just they can't be part of the community now. Okay, well... We're trying. What animal must be a member of the community... Wait. What member must a member of the community use in their sin offering? I think it's this. Okay. Well, I'm not doing good with this one, which is fine, because this is just a bunch of laws, and, like, some of the laws intuitively make sense to me, and others are just, like... I don't know. What I'm experiencing here is I think I have a large blind spot for, like, sacrifice-based laws specifically, and I think it's because... a lot of other laws, it's easy to imagine how they'd apply in the modern day, where with this one, because I've grown up, you know, I grew up in a culture where we make one sacrifice to God. It's the living sacrifice of our life in obedience to Him. So it's like, it's harder for me to, like, try to remember these and think, well, what would I do? Where, like, stuff about, like, property law, another law, I'm like, okay, well, like, if I lived in a city and someone else moved in, that's fine, you know? Like... If someone has a hairy boil, they are considered unclean if its hair turns what color? I think it's white. Yeah. Because if the hair remains dark, it's like, okay, cool. Because, like, I think, you know, like, if you have dark arm hair and then you get, like, a mole on your arm and dark hair comes out of it, you're like, okay. I actually have that on this hand. It's basically not noticeable. I have, like, a tiny mole on the side, and the hair is, like, a fraction longer coming out of that mole. But it's the same color as the rest of the hair on my hand. So it's like, okay, cool, I don't care. Where, like, if I had, like, a mole or a wart and white hair came out of it, I would go to the doctor. So again, that's one that makes sense, because it's the same way I think in the modern day. It's like, if it sounds unclean, it's probably unclean. If a man does this, they will be what? I think it's this. Okay, never mind. What animal is someone to bring for their sin offering if they cannot afford a goat or a lamb? I think it's 2 doves or a pigeon. Yeah. Which, if any, of the following are considered unclean? Both of these, actually. I've done a lot of research into, like, sex and gender-based stuff within, like, early Jewish communities, and what's interesting is, you know, in the Talmud there are either 7 or 8 sexes, depending on if you consider the 2 types of saris to be different sexes. But anyway, there was this one, like, rabbinic discourse about, I think it was the androgynos, and they were like, what makes the androgynos unclean? And the response was like, if the androgynos does this, this makes them unclean, and if they do that, that makes them unclean. Like, because they were basically saying, like, this makes a woman unclean and this makes a man unclean. Like, what makes the androgynos unclean? And it's like, well, if it's an androgynos that does neither, then I guess neither would. And if it's an androgynos that does one, that one would. Because it would be funny to say, like, a blanket statement, like, only one of these 2 would. Because then all of the androgynos that only experience the other one, would they just be constantly clean? And why would they be clean from something that would make a man or a woman unclean? So... this probably isn't funny to anyone listening. It was just funny to me, where they're like, if the androgynos menstruates, menstruation makes them unclean. If the androgynos, you know, does this makes them unclean. It's like, such a simple answer. Beautiful. But yeah, both of those make people unclean, and, whatever. The son of Shelomith blasphemed, so the Israelites did what to him? I think it was this, right? I think they put him, I know I was just saying, like, I don't understand, like, the difference when it comes to memory, but I'm pretty sure I remember this story where they made him stand outside of the camp, and then they, within the camp, were, like, throwing rocks at him. I'm pretty sure. Yes. Finally, I remembered something. And what kind of offering that uses grain are incense and olive oil not to be used? I think it's wave, because with the wave offering, you wave it at God, and then I think the priest gets to eat all of it, and you wouldn't want the priest to eat incense. Okay, that wasn't true. Ignore everything I just said. If someone has a boil, they will be considered unclean if the wound is what? I think it's this. I mean, all of these are gross, so like all of these probably also make you unclean, but I think this is what's actually described in Leviticus. Yeah. A man can do this. I think it's this. You're specifically instructed not to do these two, and this one I think you don't even need to be instructed not to do, because if she is ritually unclean, why would you go choose to make yourself ritually unclean? So I think it's this. Yeah, which that would be different than a levirate marriage, where a woman is automatically married to her dead husband's brother. But again, if a levirate marriage is okay, that kind of helped me make that decision there, where it's like, well, that should be okay too, because they specified she's dead, you know? Whatever. What is to be redeemed in the year of Jubilee? I think everything. I think you free your slaves. I think land rights revert to their original owner, and your debts are erased. So when they say redeemed, I don't know if they mean freed, erased, or returned. Let's just do this. Okay. I often don't really understand what the question is asking. Does God hold people responsible for sins they do not know they have committed? I think the answer is yes, because they have instructions on how to perform an offering for a sin you made while unaware, where they're like, hey, if the community was sinning against God and didn't know, once they become aware, they should do X, Y, and Z, and I think they also had it a personal level. So I'm going to say yes. Yeah, I was right. Yay. Oh god, looking over, my hair does look wild. Sorry, I have my, like, tiny screen over there on my phone trying to monitor the stream. I haven't combed my hair since last October. Typically when I shower, my hair is wet. I can just move it with my fingers to make it, like, parted down the middle and look really neat and really clean and really organized. I was staying with my aunt for a few days, and her shower didn't work, so I had to take a bath. And ever since then, my hair has just been wild. Which was fine, because I was holding a baby, and, you know, the baby will pull on your hair and mess with your hair already, so it's like, if I look silly, people won't think I am, like, trying to embarrass the family or look silly. They'll look at me and they'll think, oh, he was playing with the baby, you know? So it's like, it's fine, but now that I'm back home, it's like, yeah, today I need to take a shower or something. How long must a woman... Wait. I thought I already answered this and I got it wrong. I'm going to say 66 days, because after birthing a boy, I think it's 33. So 66 would be double that. I think it's 66, but I thought I answered this question already, and I got it wrong, and the correct answer wasn't even an option. Now I don't remember what that previous question was. Wow. If a woman does this, they will be... Yay! The grain offering of Aaron and his sons must be prepared with what device? I don't know. See, I want to say griddle, because I'm pretty sure it's like pancakes. Like, you mix, like, flour and oil, and then you put it on, like, the hot part of the altar where, like, offerings are burnt, but I'm not fully sure. I'm right. Griddle is not the word they use in my translation, but, like, when they were describing it in my translation, in my head I was, like, seeing pancakes, because that was the process they were describing, so I'm glad that made sense. What kind of animal is to be used as a scapegoat for the people of Israel? A goat. That's where goat in the name comes from. I know about the scapegoat. We already talked about that. Which of these is not considered a sacred assembly by God? I think this, right? Because, like, this is a holiday, this is a holiday, this is a minor holiday, so, yeah. It's like, okay, I think Sabbath and Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, I think those are, like, equivalent holiday status, where they are both minor holidays given by God, to the people that, like, they are days that belong to God, which is why he has the authority to give them. And I know all days belong to God, but what I'm getting at is, like, I'm pretty sure traditionally, like, for the ancient Israelites, the new moon and the Sabbath held the same amount of, like, weight. Where then today, some groups are now starting to bring that back. Like, a lot of Jewish women's groups are doing a lot of stuff for the new moon now. I could be wrong, but, like, as an outsider, I look at both of those, and both of those to me, it's like, oh, that's a minor holiday, you know? During the ordination offering, Moses did not put blood on what parts of Aaron and his sons? Nostril. They put them on the thumb, the earlobe, and the big toe. Which that's also how the priest anointed my cousin before he got baptized, which is really funny. Not funny, it's interesting, because I think out of everyone watching the ceremony, I might be the only one who was thinking, oh, hey, this is kind of like the priestly ordination, which, because we're a Catholic family, I say while wearing my, like, Presbyterian cross, because we're a Catholic family, you know, the priest says, I now anoint you priest, prophet, and king, when the kid gets baptized. So it's like, it kind of makes sense that you'd put the anointing oil on the 3 places that you put the blood when you're anointing a priest, because it's like, yeah, well, you know, like in Revelation and in other stuff, it talks about all believers serving as priests for God. And when they say priest there, they don't mean it like, you know, today, like a guy in a robe, you know, ministering to a congregation. They mean priest the way people meant historically priests or priestesses to gods. Like, if you imagine in ancient Greece in their polytheistic society, the role a priest would have with their deity, like, we're all called to have that relationship with God. And that's, I think, what they mean when they say, like, baptizing you makes you a priest. But I just think that's really cool, that I saw someone sort of enter into the very first step of their, like, priesthood relationship with God. I saw that just 2 days ago on Sunday. It was really nice. Maybe the previous question was about the child, not the parent. That could be. I would be confused if, like, I'm not saying that a baby can't be unclean, but I would be confused if it's like, oh, well, the baby is unclean for, like, this many days, because it's like, the baby isn't going to be making any offerings in the temple anyway, because it's a baby. I don't know. It's very possible I've misunderstood more than one of these questions. Any foreigner or Israelite who eats blood must be what? I think it's cut off. I don't think you get killed for this, but just like eating fat, I'm pretty sure this is considered stealing. Because I think the blood of every animal belongs to God. It's his portion. So when you slaughter the animal, the blood gets sacrificed to God, and then, like, the rest you get to eat. Other than, you know, the sciatic nerve and other things you're still not supposed to eat. But, like, I'm pretty sure this is considered stealing from God. The high priest can only marry who? Easy question. What part of the animal must be washed during the burnt offering? I think it's the internal organs, because I think you wash them before you burn them, because you obviously don't want to be burning them with food or with you know, waste still within them, because you're not offering half-digested food or bodily waste to God, but you are offering the organs to God. So I think you have to wash them out first before you burn them. Yeah. It can't. Oh yeah, it could be that you can't take the baby to the temple if it's unclean. That would make sense. Oh, you know, you're definitely right. You're definitely right, because boys are supposed to be circumcised on the 8th day. So I'd assume that a male baby would probably be, like, unclean for 7 days, right? And on the 8th day they're circumcised. Where a female baby who isn't going to be circumcised probably could be unclean for longer. And then I think at this point in time, you would not present them in the temple. But you are correct that the cleanliness of babies was a thing in this society. So you're completely right. I probably misread the question, and it was asking how long would a female baby be unclean. I know today, now, very often they'll do a presentation for baby girls at a synagogue. Sometimes a presentation, and then that's when they reveal the name of her to the community, sort of so that whether someone has a boy or a girl, they can still have that nice, you know, we're entering this baby into the community, we're all going to raise this child in faith, you know, like. So I know in the modern day, yeah, you actually do go present girls at the synagogue. I know back then I think you only would take a boy there to be circumcised. But you are correct, actually, that yes, babies, their cleanliness did matter. That just completely slipped my mind. How many years must the fruit of a tree be considered forbidden after an Israelite has planted it? I kind of want to say 7, because then that would like align with Jubilee year stuff, but it's probably something like 3. It's probably like you plant it, you give it 3 years to mature, and then you eat from it. Yeah. If they do this, they will be... what? I don't know. Because this sounds consensual, I'm hoping it's just this. I'm hoping it's just they get kicked out of the community and not, you know... Okay. Okay. Which of the following birds is considered clean? I'd assume quail, because God provided quail to the Israelites to eat, and I don't think he'd provide something unclean. Yay! Oh, okay. I did not realize they'd have to be punished for this. I kind of just thought if you do this, you'll be unclean for an amount of time, and that would be punishment enough, because then you can't participate in the community properly until you're clean again. I don't know. Okay, so apparently you just get like perma-banned from the community if you do that. Great. How many days after giving birth to a son is a woman regarded as unclean? I thought I answered this before, so maybe the previous one was about the kid, but if so, I don't know why it counted this correct. I think it's 33 days. Okay. I agree that there's definitely... I keep... because I have the chat over here, I keep facing over here when I'm trying to talk to the chat, which is wild, because I'm talking to you the whole time. I agree that I'm probably misunderstanding the questions, and they're asking both about the mother's purity and the baby's purity. But I thought they both mentioned the mother explicitly. If a man marries a woman and her mother, they are to be what? Okay, again, had to be one of those. I did not remember which method. Oh golly, I don't know this one. I could imagine it just being this. It could be like, hey, if you're worshiping other gods, you can't be part of of our community that belongs to our God, you know? Okay. Wow. Barely more than half. Oh, golly, golly. This is probably my worst score so far. Which obviously, I can always improve it down the line. Golly, golly, golly. Okay. Well, this kind of messes up my, oh, I always get around 2/3 score. Let's do Paul's letter to the Romans. Where is it? Here it is. Let's do Paul's letter to the Romans and see if I fare any better there. Because maybe it's just Leviticus is a harder one. But also maybe today's just not my day. Maybe I'm just, you know, tired, worn out from my trip. Who knows? Who will be declared righteous by the works of the law? I think no one. I think you don't follow the law. You follow... I mean, you do, but, like, it isn't just doing works in the law that matters. It's the faith that saves. Yeah. God sent his son in the likeness of a sinful flesh to be a what? I think it's this. Yay. Yeah, I think I struggled with the last one just because it's Leviticus, where these are easier, because this is just, do you understand, like, early Christian theology? And it's like, yes, I do. How does Paul describe Gentiles who stand by faith? I think we're wild olive branches, and then we get grafted in to the domesticated olive branches. I say we because obviously I'm a non-Jewish Christian, so, you know. To rebel against the government is to rebel against who? Well, I don't know. Because I know that the government is of earthly matters, but I also know that people say that God's will is expressed. I think Paul argued that God's will is expressed through the government, the same way that like the attacks of the attacks from like Assyria and other stuff was showing the will of God. Prophets were explaining that. So I think if the government is punishing you or whatever, that Paul would say this. Yeah, I'm struggling to word it, but it's like this follows a tradition of like God's authority can be expressed by others' authorities. What deacon does Paul commend to the believers of Rome? It's one of these two. I remember it started with a P. I think Priscilla was a Jewish Christian though who was kicked out of Rome and then returned, so I think it's Phoebe. Yeah. Because Priscilla and her husband, right? Throughout the letters we see them living somewhere, kicked out, and then they return to living there. I'm pretty sure. God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of who? I don't know. Not Paul, pretty sure. Not the Messiah. One of these two. I don't know what Caesar would do to make them do that though. So could it? I don't remember the context for that. I'm gonna have to look that one up. It says he believes that God installed the earthly rulers. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Where it's like just like how some of the prophets would say like God used Assyria as a beating rod to like discipline the Israelites. I know he'd say like, well, God gave the earthly rulers authority, and he's now working through their authority to do X, Y, and Z. That's kind of what I meant. I didn't really word it well, but like I think you and I are. I think you and I think the explanation you're giving is just confirming what I think Paul's stance was. Either that, or I'm also misunderstanding your explanation. But I think you and I have the same understanding of Paul's stance on earthly government. I was just kind of confused for a second because I'm used to associating worldly government with in opposition to God, and I think one, that's probably a much more modern type of theology, and I also think two, that's something that becomes more possible once Christianity becomes a more global religion, because then when you have, I'm struggling to word it, but I definitely think a modern Christian's relationship to the government is a little bit different than an early Christian's relationship to the government. Part of that's because now we're not, it says, yeah, I said that while you're still thinking it over. Okay. I think an ancient Christian, right, their government would be a separate religion from them and would be punishing them or rewarding them based on, I'm struggling to word it, but it's like I definitely think today, especially today, I live in a country where many members, technically, right, like separation of church and state, our government isn't like Christian, but many members of our government are. I think there's a much different sort of relationship to like being a Christian, and then you have the guy who oversees your little area within Rome, and he's like a pagan, and he wants you to be executed. Oh, fiddle, sorry, I accidentally just threw my coffee cup at my computer. I'm very sorry. What seized opportunity through the law? I think temptation, because I'm pretty sure Paul wrote about when he was just trying to follow the law, he'd be tempted not to, or when he was just trying to like be in Christ, that wasn't the case. Okay, I'm wrong. God has bound everyone to disobedience so that he can show them what? I think it's grace. I want to say compassion. I wonder if grace in an instance like this, if it were Hebrew and not Greek, if they'd use the word chesed, because that feels... Okay, never mind. If you see loving kindness in the Old Testament in your Bible, that's probably a translation of hesed, by the way. What reigned from the time of Adam to the time of Moses' death? I knew that one. And then, Jesus freed us from that. Okay, I'm looking over to make sure that the camera hasn't shaken too much. I'm sorry I threw this at the thing. I got, like, really shaky hands. The root of who will spring up and act as a hope to the Gentiles? It's one of these two. It's either Jesse or David. I think. I'm gonna say David, but Jesus is descended from both? Okay. In what realm... Wait. In what realm are you if the Spirit of God lives in you? I think you're in the Spirit, because you can be in the flesh or in the Spirit. That is cool, though. The way they worded that question, they make it sound like the Spirit is in you, and you're in the Spirit. So it's like a mutual, like... I like that. Jews and Gentiles alike are under the power of what? It's either sin or temptation, which is like basically the same thing, because you're tempted to sin. I'm gonna say sin. Okay, yay. Getting a drink of water. How many Israelites had God set aside for himself as a remnant in the time of Elijah? I don't know. I'm gonna say 7,000, because... Okay, cool. Yay. I knew it would either be 7 or 12, because those are both special numbers. Paul considers himself a slave to what in his sin? I would say... Okay, this, interesting capitalization. I think it's the law of sin, because... Yeah, I was going to answer that anyway, just based on... I don't think he mentioned Caesar much in this letter. Obviously, in his sin, he would not be a slave to God. And, Satan, I don't think got a lot of shout-outs in this letter. So it has to be this one, but also it's probably this one because if you ever see something that's, like, spelled wrong or capitalized weirdly, that's almost always the right answer in games like these. I mean, if it's the only one. I can't explain, like, why, but that's just something I've noticed in other games like this, so... Yeah. I'm so tired. What may be considered a stumbling block to some believers? What they eat. Some believers, if they saw someone else... okay, if you're poor, and you still want to eat meat, some of the, like, cheaper meat you could find for sale would be meat that had been from an animal that was sacrificed to a pagan god or goddess. And then after the sacrifice is made, they would go sell the meat. So back then, Christians would sort of meet up in each other's homes over meals very often. So someone might buy the only meat they can afford, and then host other Christians at their house, and some Christians would misinterpret this and say, well, oh, if you're eating meat that was sacrificed to these pagan gods and goddesses, clearly one can be Christian and still worship these gods and goddesses. And Paul was saying, like, nope, don't fall for that. And he was saying that he believes that through the grace of God, all things have been made clean. He doesn't believe in the other gods and goddesses, so he thinks he can eat the meat sacrificed to them. But he says he would not do so in the company of someone who it would be a stumbling block in their faith, because he does not want to deceive other people and leave them astray, even if they have a different understanding of God's freeing grace than he does. For what purpose did God rise up Pharaoh? I think it's to display God's power, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's one of these two. Which this kind of goes into God working through the government. Who is credited with righteousness before he was circumcised? I think Abraham, because Abraham had a covenant with God before he was circumcised, and I don't think Adam ever got circumcised, so it has to be him. Yeah. It's kind of weird to think about. The first man wasn't. Where did Paul have to visit because of a contribution believers there made to the poor? I don't remember. Yay! I literally just picked the one with, like, the names that looked the most familiar. Which is the same thing I did with Aaron's kids. If it works, it works. Paul says, though we all have many gifts, we are all members of one what? We're all members of one body. And that's why even though all of our abilities are different, we shouldn't be upset about that, because we all have different purposes within the one body we are, as, you know, the body of Christ, as the church. What do we not owe to the government? I think it's prayer. Like, don't pray to your local government. That's also true today. Don't do that. Obviously, pray for them. Pray that they have discernment and that they make good decisions and that they benefit those that they're meant to care for, but like don't pray to your government. Through whom did sin enter the world? Adam, I think. Yay. I mean, not yay that sin entered the world, but yay, I'm right. Why does Paul say to submit to the government? Hey, we talked about this. We talked about this. We did it. We need this one. Who intercedes for us through wordless groans? The Spirit. I think about that sometimes. Like, sometimes when I break down crying, I'm like, I don't even need to, like, find words for what I'm feeling. I can just sort of be like, dear God, please help me. And I know that the Spirit will be conveying when I'm very, very emotional and just kind of like, grr, like, I don't need to have words, which is really nice. I'm glad that the Spirit is able to do that for me, because words are hard. It's very easy to just kind of feel, and if you believe in an all-knowing God, God knows what you feel already, and you don't have to find words. We are instructed to do what to those who curse us? Oh, we're instructed to bless them. Which that also kind of goes with what Jesus said, right? About like, bless those who curse you, like, do good to those who harm you, and you'll be piling up stuff on their head. Unless it was Paul who said that. I thought Jesus said that, though. Whatever. When God passes judgment, it is based on what? Grace. I think it's either grace or love. I want to say grace. Okay, well, I tried. 21 out of 25, not bad. That's better than 2/3, and it's far better than my last one. Well, this is probably where I'm going to call it for today. I should clean a bit more. I should unpack from my trip, and then I should resume packing for moving, and I should definitely like shower and try to make my hair look a little bit presentable, because I'm pretty sure that in the Bible, when it talks about someone with an uncovered head or whatever, some translations think it should be translated as unkempt hair. So like, I might be breaking some of the law right now. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you. Oh, have a good day. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good day too. Thank you so much for chatting with me and just for tuning in for this. It really means a lot. I hope you have a great day, and God loves you, and so do I. I'm going to end the stream. Bye, everyone. Bye, friends. I love you all, and I really hope you all have a great time, and especially you, Bratley, because thank you for just chatting with me. Bye.